Hey everybody, this is Perch. Talking a little bit about the comic book business. So we have a question here that gets into kind of some of the nuts and bolts of it. But what surprises me is my viewpoint is a lot of people find the comic book business type videos boring. And there's definitely, one of the things I've learned as I've gone about this is to not look at other message boards. Somebody will point me to something from I don't know, some message board there, and like, Perch is a flip flapper. Perch is a fence sitter. Perch just talks about business. Perch has a terrible voice, and only one of those things is true. But when I talk to people in person, I frequently get the feedback of, "Hey, we love those videos. Why don't you do more of them?" So hey, let's do more of them. Anyway, so this mail asks pretty good questions about it. It says, "Hey, Perch, I have in my lap, so I write this, a copy of Venditti's Sandman #1. I just want to share the ads in this book. A double-page spread for Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, a one-page ad for a Superman YA book, a one-page ad for World's Finest. Not sure who's buying Sandman who doesn't already know this title is out, but okay. A 7-page preview for a Jay Garrick book, and some DC merch ads on the interior covers and back cover. Meaning not a single ad in this book is anything but DC related." Okay. So I'll pause there for a second because this experience is pretty true. Whatever company that you happen to be dealing with, whether it's Marvel or DC or Image, it's a lot of it's what we would call house ads. House ads being ads that are ones that are owned by the house. So basically ads for themselves. Now, as an aside, and I get this, but I don't get it at the same time. It's always been slightly wacky to me. There are a lot of pretty crazy loops that people have to hop through in order to get the house ad in play. And the reason why I find that kind of a little weird is, at least from talking to editors and kind of other people, they find that the process for getting a house ad going for an intercompany thing, like, so for example, you're it's the Avengers, right? You're the editor for the Avengers, and you're trying to get an ad for the Avengers in the Marvel books that month because you're doing something special or whatever. Anyway, reportedly, or, rumor has it that process is more painful and terrible than actually going to work with a third party selling the ad space, like going to work with M&Ms, for example. You get ads for candy. It is weirdly easier to just work with that marketing department that's ready to do an ad and place it versus having to justify that your own, from your own company. I don't know. I find that wild, but whatever. Let's go back to the mail here and then we'll get more into it. It says, this is a first issue, meaning DC expects decent sales figures. We'll see. I do love Venditti, but Sandman #1, probably not high sales. High sales for the series, for sure. My question, where are the actual paid non-DC ads? Say what you will about comics, but most of this publisher's books sell tens of thousands of copies. YouTube videos don't need that many views to have one or two ads before playing, another ad halfway through, and obviously many channels take sponsors, which is a good point in the video to remind everyone to sign up for NordVPN. NordVPN is an amazing service. It basically allows you to spoof your address from somewhere else. And this can be particularly very, very helpful if you're looking into some really, really filthy porn that's not legal in your state. Also, if you want to watch, terrible Netflix shows that have been taken off within your region, you can do that too. So NordVPN, a proud not sponsor of the Perch channel. All right, sorry. You could get 6 corporate ads in a YouTube channel about Pokemon cards or NordVPN. Sorry. But DC, who sells hundreds of thousands of comics a month, sometimes millions, struggles to find advertisers. Seriously, you're advertising comics that sell better than Sandman within Sandman. What happened to 6 ads on a page and 9 on the back cover? Isn't this just wasted money? Or wasted opportunity, at least. Hope you're doing well, by the way. I hope you're doing well, too. This is from a cool guy that I interviewed with his own thing, and I think you got your comic out. Update me on how that went, by the way, or let's get back on the show. Love to talk to you again. Look, it's funny because there's a little bit of a chicken and the egg kind of situation that went on with ads. And you can talk to people who will tell you that what I'm about to say is completely wrong and he doesn't know what he's talking about and everything else. Except I've spoken to enough people to know I'm not wrong about this. You may be believing it your own way, but I know I'm not. A lot of comic books, the publishers walked away from advertising. Not that long after the closing of the newsstand and the full embrace of the direct market, and in some cases it was that the ad revenue or basically the advertisers who are interested in running inside comic books were willing to pay money for it, dramatically decreased, and it decreased for many reasons, but the biggest is the circulation numbers plummeted because suddenly you didn't have the newsstand, you're going just to direct market. This was a better deal for the comic publishers in a lot of cases because they didn't have to offer returnability, so you didn't have any of that stuff coming through. And, and it meant that the sale they made was the sale they could count on. So financially, it felt better to comic companies. And then you had like the boom of the 90s, so the direct market artificially kept those numbers higher. Because people were interested in comics, but with the break in the late 90s and kind of the different shifts that happened in the decade that followed, things were different. So advertisers that were previously looking at things like millions of copies of circulation, because one important note, by the way, you may have been hearing that last mail been read, and you're like, well, what comic sells 1 million copies? No, not a comic, but the aggregate of comics. Marvel is selling 80 books a month. You could do the math very quickly. Okay, if the median book is 25 to 30,000 copies, 25,000, let's use the easier one, times 80. Do you see where I'm going with this? 40 copies, 40 comics, 4 comics would equal 100,000 copies at that number. 4 times 10, right? Do you see, again, you could very easily say Marvel has at minimum 2 million copies floating around when they're doing 80 comics a month. And several comics, do sell more than 40,000. A couple sell under, but anyway. All this said, they have high circulation numbers, but not as high as the previous time in the newsstand where you had, like a copy of Jim Lee's X-Men selling like, 6 million copies, whatever it wound up being by itself, let alone the other, how many comics Marvel was selling that month. So anyway, the volume was really high, and now the volume is a lot lower. But all that said, the volume is not still so low that they can't attract people. They just might have to attract different people, or they might have to take different money. The other factor in all this is a lot of companies shifted their advertising, their marketing away from print. Now, in some cases, they didn't shift it entirely, meaning they didn't just stop doing print, but they definitely stopped paying as much money for it because, the advertising market shifted more toward online ads and other things where they put their money, and that's just how the marketing goes. Several companies have given up on trying to do anything for print, but this is the chicken and egg part. Is it because they don't want to do it or because they're not offered to do it? Who knows? The point in all this is Marvel and DC, big publishers, could absolutely run print ads. They would have to take less money, and people within the publishers, and this is a direct quote, have said it's probably not worth our time, to deal with an advertiser. Except, how much time is it really to deal with an advertiser? Having an ad department that's going to go out and solicit ads. I mean, your small hometown newspaper has somebody who does this job. Are you really telling me that within the hallowed halls of, Warner or Disney, you don't have a person who couldn't, solicit ads for comics? Again, you're not doing 80 different ads. You're doing one set of ads that you're putting into 80 books. So is it really that hard? I just would question that. That's been a hard pushback from those companies of like, no, this is way too much work to do this. But again, if you live in a tiny town, look, I'll put it a different way. My daughter's, middle school has a school newspaper that comes out once a week. They have ads in that school newspaper. are you telling me that whatever the newspaper club, the teacher and handful of, fifth graders have the time to call up and get ads? I don't know. It just seems that somebody would have to sit down with me and explain why, why it is so astronomically hard to do. And then the other part of it is, if you're talking about a comic like Sandman #1 and you're running ads for World's Finest does sell, undoubtedly twice as many copies as Sandman #1. What are you doing from an ad perspective? Somebody's like, holy shit, I didn't know DC made World Finest. I didn't know. I mean, it's like there's ads for Blood Hunt inside of a Marvel book. And it's like, this is your big summer spectacular. Again, you could run some ads, but I mean, is this really something that you need to gain visibility? And I think that raises bigger questions about what's going on in comics if that's where you're at. But anyway, you could absolutely do it. Now, to the last question, though, is it worth the money? I mean, it's probably not a lot of money. It's not going to keep the comic business afloat. It's not going to, change everything. You're not going to be able to drop the cover price by like $2 if you run ads. But you probably could drop it 50 cents. Probably. I don't know exactly that, but you could also take that money and, give it to some of the creators. I mean, there's some things you could do. It's a national ad. Comics still has crossover with Hollywood, with games, with, a lot of other kind of pieces. I think there's stuff you could certainly do. You could also go after that government money and run like Don't Smoke or, get knocked up at 14 or whatever. And you can get grants and money from the government for that. I mean, there's stuff you could do. I don't know that it's like terrific go home rich money, but it's money. And, so then we get to the last bit, which is when I've had this argument and I just methodically kind of work down the different arguments until I finally, drive people into submission. The last argument, the comic fans will be pissed if they start seeing ads in books. And to that I say, I don't think they care. I'm sorry, I just don't. If comic fans are putting up with blank variant covers and and internal house ads for comics that are selling 10 times the amount of the comic they're currently reading and other bullshit like that, I have an incredibly hard time buying that this is I just have a hard time buying that comic fans can suddenly be like, an ad for Furiosa. I'm not going to see that movie. Fuck that. I'm not buying this comic now. I mean, really? I don't buy it. Look, it's a little bit of money, and even if you took that little bit of money and you said, hey, we made $50,000 for the month for all the comics, and we're gonna take that $50,000, we're gonna give a little spot bonus to the writers and artists of $1,000. I don't know. I know a lot of writers and artists who would take that. Just be pretty happy. You gain some loyalty. You could sink it into sending the comic shops posters and promo materials for free. It seems like it's money you could, or you could just pocket it, and go and have one really. I mean, you could pay for one good lunch for CB Cebulski. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do. God damn, it just dawned on me when they were doing the writer summits. You got like CB and Dan Slott in the same room eating. I mean, Jesus Christ, what are those bills? All right, sorry, that's unfair. I mean, to the food. Sorry. All right. Thank you very much for the mail. Ads and comics. Why not? Maybe somebody has a better explanation. But please don't make your explanation. To me, this is the most boomer comic of all. Like, people don't care about print. Yeah, except there's sales every month that say that people are buying comics. So it's only the collectors are buying comics. They're just bagging and not even reading a book. I mean, okay, but do the advertisers know that? Fuck it. Take their money for a couple of years before they figure it out. By all means, come with the answer, but don't give me a boomer answer. All right, that's enough. Thanks for listening.